When you feel like you have no way out, let God's love open the doors to the impossible. There are moments in life when every path seems closed, every prayer feels unanswered, and every light disappears into silence. You try, you push, you believe, but nothing moves. It's like standing in a dark room with no doors, no windows, no air to breathe. Hope feels like a story you once believed but can no longer touch. And yet, even here, in this narrow place of exhaustion, something holy is still at work. Because God's love doesn't need visible doors to make a way. It moves through what human eyes call impossible. It opens paths in places meant to stay closed. You may not see it, you may not feel it, but while you think everything has ended, heaven is quietly building a beginning. Sometimes the greatest miracles are not loud. They don't arrive with thunder. They arrive in whispers, in the way your heart still beats even when you want to give up, in the way peace visits you in the middle of despair, in the way one small thought, maybe I'm not alone, begins to heal your entire soul. So if today you feel like there's no way out, stop, breathe, because the moment you think you've reached your limit, God's love is already standing at the threshold, holding the key. The same love that parted seas, raised the broken, and turned endings into resurrection is the love that's coming for you now. The walls closing in. There comes a moment when life feels like a corridor that keeps getting smaller. Every step you take brings you closer to a wall instead of an opening. You pray, but heaven feels silent. You move, but nothing seems to change. You ask for direction, but every sign disappears into confusion. And it's in this kind of moment that the soul begins to whisper, maybe there's no way out. You wake up carrying the same weight you went to bed with, the questions that never stop echoing, the dreams that seem to have turned to dust, the fear that maybe God has forgotten where you live. You try to be strong, you tell yourself to keep believing, but the truth is, you're tired. Tired of trying to hold everything together. Tired of pretending you're fine. Tired of fighting battles no one else can see. The walls you face are not made of stone. They are built from disappointments, from prayers that never came true, from people who left without explanation, from moments where you thought faith would protect you from pain, but pain still found you. These walls are made of everything that didn't work out. Every door that closed when you needed it opened the most. And the cruelest part, you built some of them yourself, with fear, with doubt, with the belief that you were not enough for miracles. But listen carefully. Just because the walls are close doesn't mean there's no space for God to move. God's love has no respect for what limits you. It doesn't stop where logic ends. It doesn't retreat where hope seems gone. The same love that breathed stars into the sky can breathe life into your silence. Sometimes God allows the walls to close in, not to trap you, but to teach you how to look beyond them. Because until every escape you designed fails, you won't look for the one door that only heaven can open. The miracle doesn't happen when you still have options. It happens when the last door slams and you realize that if something opens now, it will have to be by divine hands. So if it feels like your world is shrinking, don't despair. The narrow path is where heaven expands. The place where you stop fighting and start surrendering is where God's love begins to perform its quiet, unseen work. You may not understand it now, but the walls around you are not meant to destroy you. They are meant to redirect you toward the only door that leads to freedom. Because one day you'll look back and understand, those walls were never your prison. They were the walls of the cocoon, where God was transforming you into who you were always meant to be. The cry no one hears. There is a kind of pain that has no sound. You carry it in the way you breathe, in the way your smile doesn't quite reach your eyes, in the way you stare at the ceiling at 2 a.m., wondering if anyone, even God, still remembers you. It's not the pain of a wound that bleeds, it's the ache of something that's fading inside you, slowly, quietly. You've learned how to hide it well. You've become fluent in silence. To the world you look fine. functioning, even strong. But inside there's a cry that never finds a voice. It's the kind of cry that echoes through the soul and dies before reaching the air. You want to scream, but the words don't come out. You want to ask for help, but you fear no one would understand. It's the cry of the one who's still showing up even when everything hurts. The one who keeps praying though the heavens feel locked. The one who smiles at others while quietly breaking inside. It's the soundless prayer of the weary, the kind that heaven never ignores even when the world does. Because God's love doesn't wait for words to move. It responds to the trembling of your heart. It listens to the sighs that no one else hears. It bends near the places where you've buried your hope and whispers, "I am still here." There are moments when you think silence means abandonment, but it doesn't. Silence is often the sacred space where love begins to work in ways you cannot see. When your cries seem unanswered, it's not because heaven is indifferent. It's because heaven is building something too deep to explain. Sometimes, God doesn't speak because his presence is already saying enough. He doesn't rush to comfort you with quick words. He surrounds you with invisible strength. His love is not always loud. It's steady, patient, alive. It holds you when you can't hold yourself. It keeps you breathing when you think you've reached the end. And while you may think no one notices your hidden tears, heaven does. Every tear is counted, every sigh is sacred. Every quiet night is recorded in the heart of a God who never forgets your name. You may think you're surviving alone, but you're not. You're being carried. Through every sleepless night, through every unanswered question, through every invisible battle. So if no one else has heard your cry, know this: God's love has. And even now that love is moving through the silence, not to erase your pain, but to redeem it. To turn every moment of loneliness into a bridge between your weakness and his strength. Because what feels like the end of your voice is where his begins. The hidden door. There is a moment, somewhere between exhaustion and surrender, when you finally stop trying to fix everything. You've run through every plan, every prayer, every possible path, and still, nothing seems to move. It's there in that quiet defeat that something begins to shift. Because when your strength runs out, God's love steps in. It's strange, isn't it? How sometimes it takes everything collapsing for something new to begin. You spend so long pushing at doors that refuse to open, convinced that if you just try harder, cry louder, believe stronger, something will change. But then comes the day when you can't push anymore. When your hands fall, your heart breaks, and all you can do is whisper, "I can't." And it's in that whisper that heaven leans close, because the hidden door, the one you've been searching for without knowing it, never opens to force. It opens to surrender. It's not a door you find by effort. It's one revealed when love decides the time is right. You see, God's love often hides the way forward, not to punish you, but to protect you. There are paths you thought were blessings that would have destroyed you if you'd walked them too soon. There are opportunities you begged for that would have crushed your spirit had they been granted in your current state. The delay was never rejection. It was mercy. The silence was never absence. It was preparation. The hidden door appears when you least expect it, when your heart stops demanding and starts trusting. It doesn't swing open with thunder. It appears quietly, often disguised as something ordinary. A conversation that stirs your soul, a peace that makes no sense, a moment when you feel seen after a long season of invisibility. That's how God's love works, softly, subtly, but with unshakable purpose. And when that door finally opens, you'll realize something beautiful. It was never outside of you. It was within. Because the doorway to the impossible is not found in the world. It's found in your heart when you finally believe that love has never left. The same love that once parted seas still parts your fear. The same love that moved stones from tombs still moves the ones from your chest. It doesn't need visible space to work. It needs only your willingness to trust again. You may feel lost, but you are not forgotten. You may feel trapped, but you are being positioned. The walls you once cursed are now guiding you toward the only exit that leads to peace, the hidden door of surrender. And when you walk through it, everything changes. The darkness doesn't vanish at once, but it loses its power. The silence doesn't disappear, but it stops feeling cruel. Because you realize it was never about escaping the pain. It was about finding God in the middle of it. That's the secret of the hidden door. It doesn't lead you away from your struggle. It leads you straight into the arms of love that transforms it, when faith meets the impossible. There comes a sacred moment when faith stops being a word you say and becomes the air you breathe. Not the kind of faith that demands proof, but the kind that holds on even when everything falls apart. It's quiet, almost invisible, yet it carries the power to shift entire mountains, not the ones outside you, but the ones within. When you have walked through enough closed doors, you begin to understand something deeper. Miracles don't begin when God changes your circumstances. They begin when He changes you in the middle of them. Because God's love is not a quick escape. It's a quiet revolution that starts in the hidden corners of your heart. You thought faith was about speaking the right words, praying harder, or believing without doubt. But true faith, the kind that opens doors to the impossible, is born when you stop striving and start resting in love. It's when your soul whispers, "Even if nothing changes, I still trust you." That whisper carries more power than 1,000 declarations shouted into the sky. It's here in this holy stillness that heaven begins to move, not because you earned it, but because you finally allowed it. God's love has always been near, waiting for the moment your fear grows quiet enough for you to feel it. And once you do, everything inside you begins to shift. The same walls that once imprisoned you start to echo with promise. The same silence that felt unbearable begins to sound like peace. Because faith doesn't ignore reality. It transforms how you see it. You stop asking, "Why me?" and begin whispering, "What are you teaching me?" You stop begging for escape and start asking for strength. And slowly, your despair becomes dialogue, your pain becomes prayer, and your waiting becomes worship. That's when the impossible begins to unfold, not as lightning or thunder, but as light breaking through the smallest crack. A door creaks open in a place you thought was sealed. A way appears where logic swore there was none. It's not because you forced it. It's because love did what love always does. It made a way. And when it happens, you'll understand that faith was never about controlling the outcome. It was about trusting the heart behind it. The miracle isn't that the prison walls fall. It's that your heart learns to sing while they're still standing. That's the faith that moves heaven. The faith that loves without seeing, that believes while breaking, that keeps walking even when every step hurts. So if you're standing before what feels impossible, don't despair. You're not facing a dead end. You're standing at the edge of divine intervention. Because God's love doesn't wait for the perfect moment, it creates it. And when your faith meets His love, even the impossible starts to bow. The waiting season. Waiting is one of the hardest places for the human heart to live, not because nothing is happening, but because you can't see what is happening. You prayed, you believed, you surrendered, you even said, "God, let your love open the doors I can't." And still nothing seems to move. No answer, no call, no breakthrough, just time, just silence, just you and a promise that hasn't shown up yet. It's in this in-between space that many people give up, not when they're in pain, not even when they're in battle. They give up in the waiting because waiting exposes what pain hides. In the waiting, you hear every doubt. Maybe it won't happen. Maybe it wasn't for you. Maybe God forgot. And that's where God's love does one of its deepest works. Not when He gives what you asked, but when He teaches you to stay even when you don't get it yet. Waiting is not punishment. Waiting is training. It is God stretching your capacity to trust. It is heaven saying, I want you to receive this with maturity, not anxiety. Because a door opened too soon can crush you. A blessing delivered in the wrong season can become a burden. So love waits. Not because it's slow, but because it's wise. In the waiting, God is not only preparing the door, He is preparing you for the door. He is healing what would sabotage it. He is removing people who would drain it. He is strengthening the parts of you that would crumble under it. You think nothing is happening because you can't see the door opening yet. But behind the curtain, love is aligning conversations, locations, timings, hearts, things you could never control. And here is the mystery. Sometimes the waiting is the very proof that the door is supernatural. Human doors open fast, divine doors open right. But waiting hurts, doesn't it? It makes you feel delayed, left behind, invisible. You watch others receiving what you've been praying for and something inside you aches. God, what about me? And He answers, not always with words, but with presence. I didn't forget you. I am building it. I am building you. So what do you do in the waiting? You don't sink, you root. You don't chase, you rest. You don't let anxiety write your story, you let love do it. Waiting is the place where worship becomes real, where you praise not because you got it, but because you know the one who will send it. Where you say, even if it takes longer than I thought, I still believe your love opens what no man can shut. And slowly, something begins to change. The waiting that once felt like a cage becomes a sanctuary. The silence that once hurt becomes a place of listening. You start to notice God in the ordinary, in the way He comforts you on random mornings, in the way He sends a verse exactly when you were tired, in the way peace shows up right when you were about to quit. That's not coincidence, that's supervision. That's love monitoring your breaking point and giving you just enough grace to stay. Because this is what you must remember. The door is not late. It is arriving at the exact second where it will glorify God the most and heal you the deepest. Love is not trying to prove speed. Love is trying to prove faithfulness. One day, very quietly, the waiting season will end. Not with noise, but with a key turning in a lock you didn't even know was in front of you. And you will look back and say, now I understand. If it had come earlier, I wouldn't have been ready. If it had opened sooner, I would have thought it was my own strength. But now I know. This was God's love opening a door to the impossible. So if you're in the waiting, don't despise it. This is where faith becomes grown, where character is refined, where roots go deep. This is where you stop begging for an exit and start trusting the builder. You are not stuck. You are being timed, and heaven never misses its cue. When heaven works in silence, there are moments when heaven seems to go quiet. Not because it has forgotten you, but because it's working in ways your heart isn't ready to see yet. You pray and nothing happens. You cry and no one answers. You ask for a sign, and all you get is stillness. And so, you start to believe the lie that maybe God has turned away. But the truth is, silence is not the absence of love. It's the sound of something sacred being formed in secret. When God's love is building something extraordinary, it often hides it behind ordinary days. Behind the moments that look like nothing, behind the waiting that feels like forever, behind the prayers that seem unanswered. Because what love builds in silence cannot be destroyed by noise. You may not see movement, but that doesn't mean heaven is still. Seeds grow under the soil, not on top of it. The roots take shape where eyes can't reach. And in that same way, the answers you've been praying for are being prepared in invisible places. While you think nothing is changing, the impossible is quietly unfolding. Timing, people, opportunities, healing, all aligning to meet you at the right second. It's hard, isn't it? The silence feels cruel. You begin to ask, why won't you speak? But God's silence is never rejection. It's revelation delayed until your heart is strong enough to hold it. If He spoke too soon, you would move before the miracle was ready. If he opened the door too early, you would walk through it without the strength to stay. That's why sometimes the kindest thing heaven can do is remain still. Love doesn't rush. It doesn't need to prove itself through constant signs. It moves in the unseen, steady, patient, certain. The same love that felt absent in your tears was there, shaping the outcome, rewriting your story in silence. When heaven is quiet, it's not because it's gone, it's because it's closer than you think. Silence is not God stepping back, it's God stepping in, into your fear, your doubt, your exhaustion, rearranging everything without your awareness. And one day, when the time is right, you'll look back and realize that the silence wasn't empty. It was sacred. It was where you learned to trust what you couldn't hear, to believe in what you couldn't see, to rest in what you couldn't understand. Because that's where miracles are born, not in the noise of certainty, but in the quiet of faith. So if you're walking through a season where heaven seems silent, hold on. Heaven is not ignoring you. It's investing in you. Every unanswered prayer, every quiet night, every delay is filled with divine activity. The silence you fear is the womb of something eternal, and soon when the time is right, that silence will break, not with thunder but with peace, and you'll realize, heaven was never still. It was just working in a different language, the language of love. The power of letting go. Letting go is one of the hardest things the heart will ever do. It feels like surrendering control, like giving up on what you've held for so long, the dream, the person, the outcome you wanted so badly. But sometimes it's not loss, it's liberation, because you cannot receive what God has prepared for you while your hands are still holding what's already gone. We cling to things out of fear that if we release them, nothing better will come. Fear that if we stop trying, everything will fall apart. But God's love is not asking you to give up, it's inviting you to trust. Letting go is not the end of your story. It's the beginning of the chapter where heaven takes over. The truth is, holding on often becomes heavier than what we're holding. The weight of trying to keep something alive that's already finished drains the soul. And you can feel it. The exhaustion, the anxiety, the sadness of pretending you're okay when you're not. That's the sign. That's how love whispers. It's time. Letting go doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop carrying what was never meant to be your burden. It's giving permission for God to do what only He can do. It's standing before what hurts and saying, even if I don't understand, I choose to trust. And something powerful happens when you do. The very thing you feared losing becomes the key that sets you free. Because love cannot fill a heart that's already full of fear. It needs space, and letting go creates that space. You see, faith and control cannot coexist. One has to die for the other to live. The miracle begins not when you figure everything out, but when you release the need to. You stop fighting what ended and start trusting what's next. And that's when God begins to move, not through your effort, but through your surrender. Think about it. Every closed door you've cried over, every unanswered prayer that broke you, every delay that frustrated you, they were not punishment, they were protection, they were love redirecting you towards something far greater than you could see. When you finally let go, you realize that the story was never really in your hands. It was always in His. And He was never writing tragedy. He was writing transformation. So let go, not because you've lost hope, but because you've found peace. Let go, not because you stopped believing, but because you believe deeper now. Let go, not because the dream was wrong, but because the timing wasn't right. And as your hands open, something sacred happens. You feel lighter. You breathe again. The sky seems wider. The same heart that once broke begins to heal in ways it never could while clutching the past. That's when you realize you never lost control. You were never meant to have it. Because the greatest miracles are born the moment you stop forcing and start flowing. When you stop begging for what left and start preparing for what's coming. Letting go is not the end. It's the turning point. The exact place where your surrender becomes the seed of your next miracle. The unseen hand. There are times when everything in your life feels still, but it isn't. It's only quiet because the unseen hand of God is at work. You can't hear it, you can't see it, but deep beneath the surface, everything is being rearranged, perfectly, delicately, intentionally. You think nothing's changing because there's no visible proof. The doors remain closed, the prayers seem unanswered, the people you hoped would help you never show up. But that's only because love works best in the shadows. God doesn't always reveal his movements, not because he wants to confuse you, but because he wants to protect what he's building. If you could see the full picture, you'd rush it. If you could touch the process, you'd try to shape it your way. That's why the unseen hand remains invisible. Because faith grows best when eyes cannot interfere. God's love is a quiet architect. It's rearranging every detail while you're still trying to understand yesterday. It's speaking to hearts you haven't met yet, aligning opportunities you don't know exist yet, healing wounds you forgot you had. The silence you hear is not abandonment, it's orchestration. While you sit wondering if heaven heard you, heaven is busy designing the next chapter of your story. There's a place being prepared for you, a moment already written with your name on it, but it's hidden, because what is sacred must first be protected. The unseen hand is steady. It holds what you can't carry. It moves what you can't move. It defends you in rooms you'll never enter. It closes the mouths of those who speak against you, and opens doors you don't even know exist. It's not loud because it doesn't need to be. When the creator of the universe moves, he doesn't announce it. He simply shifts everything until his will is done. You may think you're standing still, but you're not. Every pause, every delay, every quiet moment is filled with motion. You are being guided, shaped, positioned for what love has promised. Remember, what's invisible to you is not invisible to heaven. The same hand that sculpted galaxies is sculpting your life. The same hand that calmed storms is calming the chaos inside you. You might not see the path yet, but one day soon you'll realize you've been walking on it all along. And when you finally look back, you'll see fingerprints everywhere. In the timing that once frustrated you, in the detours that saved you, in the people who entered and left exactly when they needed to. That's how God's love moves. Through the unseen, through the quiet, through the perfectly timed miracles no one can explain. So if you're in a season where you can't see progress, hold on. The absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence. The unseen hand is still moving. And one day you'll wake up and realize that the impossible door you prayed for is open. Not because of your effort, but because love was working while you rested. Because when God moves, he doesn't just change your circumstances. He changes the atmosphere around your life. Quietly, powerfully, completely. The door begins to open. It never happens all at once. The door doesn't swing open with noise or fanfare. It begins with something small, a shift so gentle you almost miss it. A sudden peace that doesn't make sense. A call that comes at the right moment. A change in your heart that feels like fresh air after years of breathing in the same pain. That's how God's love moves, quietly, faithfully, one hinge at a time. You've waited. You've cried. You've surrendered. And now something begins to stir. You don't even realize it at first, because the miracle doesn't shout. It whispers. It's in the way your heart no longer panics the way it used to. It's in the way hope returns without warning in small waves like light sneaking under a closed door. For so long you thought the silence meant nothing was happening. But heaven was never still. The unseen hand was working, preparing, aligning, restoring. And now the time has come. The door that seemed permanently sealed begins to move. The lock that wouldn't turn suddenly clicks open, and what once looked impossible starts to unfold before your eyes. You realize that the waiting was not wasted, it was holy. The silence wasn't empty, it was sacred. Every tear you cried watered the ground where your miracle would grow. And now, here it is. Not because you forced it, but because love decided it was time. The door doesn't just open to let you out. It opens to let something in. Purpose, healing, peace, divine alignment. What you thought was an ending reveals itself as a passage into something far greater than you could ever design. And as you step closer, fear whispers, "What if it closes again?" But God's love answers, "What I open, no one can shut." This is not a temporary opportunity. This is a divine unfolding. You're not stepping into luck. You're stepping into destiny. Every delay that once broke you now makes sense. Every loss that once crushed you was actually clearing the path. Every no that wounded you was protecting you from the wrong door. Because this, right here, is the one meant for you. When the door begins to open, don't rush. Don't panic. Don't doubt. Stand still and let love finish what it started. The same hand that opened it will lead you through it. You don't have to force anything. Just follow the peace. That's how you'll know it's real. And as the light begins to pour through, you'll realize something sacred. You're not the same person who first knocked. The waiting changed you. The silence refined you. The surrender matured you. You don't walk through this door desperate anymore, dear. You walk through it anchored in peace. You'll look around and realize that every impossible wall has become a doorway, and every unanswered prayer has become a testimony. This is what happens when God's love decides it's time. The impossible stops being a theory and becomes your reality. So when the door begins to open, don't ask why now. Just say thank you. Because the same love that seemed silent was never gone. It was always preparing this moment. And now, what once felt like the end of everything is the beginning of everything new. The miracle in motion. When miracles begin, they rarely look like miracles. They come disguised as ordinary moments, a message, a coincidence, a conversation that feels strangely timed. But deep down, something inside you knows. This is different. It's not random. It's not luck. It's God's love finally revealing what it's been preparing all along. You see, heaven doesn't announce miracles with lightning. It hides them in the everyday, in the things that feel small but change everything. The miracle begins the moment your heart says, "I trust you even now." Because faith is the doorway, and love is the key. For so long, you thought you had to make things happen. That if you didn't move, nothing would. But now, as you watch the pieces fall into place without your effort, you understand. God never needed your control, only your surrender. You realize that all those months, all those tears, were not wasted. They were watering the ground where this miracle would bloom. You start to notice the alignment, the way things connect that never should have, the way paths cross at the exact moment they're meant to, the way peace arrives before explanation. That's how God's love works, quietly weaving purpose through what once looked like chaos. You didn't lose time. You were being positioned. The miracle in motion is not loud. It's not rushed. It unfolds like dawn, slowly, gently, with light expanding until you finally see what's been growing in the dark. And when you do, awe replaces anxiety. Gratitude silences fear. You realize that the same love that held you in the waiting is now walking beside you in the fulfillment. But here's the beauty. The miracle is not the open door itself. It's who you've become while waiting for it. You are not the same soul that once begged to escape the storm. You are softer now, stronger, wiser. You've learned that miracles don't happen to you. They happen through you. You've become a vessel of the very love that once carried you. And still, love moves. Unseen, unstoppable. It's restoring what was lost, reviving what was buried, healing what was broken. People who once forgot you begin to remember. Opportunities that vanished begin to return. What you thought was over starts to breathe again. That's what divine timing looks like, not delayed, but designed. When the miracle begins to move, don't fear it. Don't question if you deserve it. You do, not because you earned it, but because love decided it was time. God's love never rewards performance. It responds to surrender. And the miracle is not a prize, it's a revelation that you were never abandoned, only prepared. So as the impossible unfolds before you, let gratitude overflow. Let peace lead your steps. Let awe fill your silence. Because this moment, where everything starts to align, is the proof that heaven never forgot you. And even now, as you stand watching it all unfold, remember this. The same love that opened this door will keep it open. The same hand that guided you here will never let you fall. The miracle in motion is not just happening around you, it's happening within you. Because the greatest miracle of all is not what changed in your life, it's what changed in your heart. The light beyond the walls. The light doesn't rush in, it seeps tenderly through the cracks. After all the darkness, your eyes almost don't recognize it. You've spent so long surviving in shadows that brightness feels foreign. But as it grows, softly, steadily, you begin to understand. This light isn't coming from outside. It's rising from within. It's the reflection of God's love that never stopped burning, even when everything else went dim. For years, you prayed for an open door. You wanted the walls to fall. But you see now, the real miracle wasn't the breaking of the walls. It was what happened inside them. Because those walls, the same ones that once trapped you, became the place where you met love face to face. And now, as they begin to fade, what's left is not fear, but clarity. Not emptiness, but peace. You step into the light slowly, unsure at first. You still remember the nights when you couldn't see beyond the pain. You still carry the memory of loss, the ache of unanswered questions. But something has changed. The pain no longer defines you. It has become proof. Proof that even in your lowest moments, heaven was working. The world looks different now. The same places that once reminded you of sorrow now whisper peace. The same memories that used to hurt now teach gratitude. That's what happens when love heals the eyes. You begin to see everything as part of the story, even the parts that broke you. As you walk through what used to be walls, you realize they were never barriers. They were boundaries of grace, keeping you safe until you were ready. Every delay, every detour, every unanswered prayer makes sense in this light, because now you can see what you couldn't before. You were never stuck. You were being shaped. The light beyond the walls is not blinding. It's healing. It doesn't erase the scars, it illuminates them. It shows you how every crack became a doorway, every tear became a seed, every ending became a beginning. That's the power of God's love. It turns even ruins into resurrection. You start to feel lighter. The weight you carried so long begins to lift. You realize you no longer have to try so hard to be okay. You simply are. The air feels different. The silence, once painful, now feels peaceful. You've stopped striving to be understood, because love has already understood you. And as you stand there, bathed in the light of a new day, a truth settles deep in your heart. You were never walking toward the light. The light was always walking toward you. That's how divine love works. It doesn't demand that you climb your way out of the dark. It meets you there and guides you home, slowly, gently, faithfully. So now, as the walls finally dissolve, you understand the full story. You didn't break free because you fought harder. You broke free because you trusted deeper. You didn't find the light found you. And it was there all along, waiting for the moment you stopped searching and simply believed. You're standing now where fear once ruled. The same place that once held your tears is now filled with peace. This is redemption. This is restoration. This is love made visible. And as you breathe in that light, you whisper, not in fear, not in longing, but in awe, thank you. Because this is what it feels like when heaven finishes what it started. The heart that believes again. There was a time when you doubted you'd ever feel light again. A time when your faith felt thin, fragile, like a flame trembling in the wind. You prayed, but the words felt empty. You tried to believe, but disappointment spoke louder. Yet here you are, still standing, still breathing, still feeling that quiet pulse inside you, whispering that maybe, just maybe, there is more. That whisper, that gentle, persistent hope, is God's love breathing again inside your heart. The same love that carried you through silence, through loss, through waiting, is now rebuilding your faith from the inside out. And it feels different this time. Not naive, not loud, but real. It's the kind of faith that's been tested by fire and proven unshakable. You no longer believe because everything makes sense. You believe because love has made its presence undeniable. You've seen too many coincidences that weren't coincidences. Too many doors open at the exact second you needed them. Too much peace where logic said there should be none. That's not luck. That's not chance. That's God, moving in the details, redeeming what once seemed lost. And now your heart no longer begs for signs. It simply trusts. Not because it understands the plan, but because it knows the planner. Not because everything is easy, but because you've learned that even in difficulty, love remains. This is the heart that believes again. Not because it was spared from breaking, but because it was healed after it did. You know now that faith is not about avoiding pain, but about finding purpose within it. You know that God doesn't just restore what you lost. He transforms it into something new, something stronger, something sacred. You've become the living proof that the impossible can bow to love. You've seen walls fall, doors open, and light return where darkness once ruled. And even now, as you stand in this peace, you know the journey isn't over, but you walk differently. You walk with assurance, with serenity, with a heart that beats in rhythm with grace. Because the faith that's born from pain doesn't fade, it deepens. It no longer depends on outcomes. It no longer wavers with fear. It knows that even if the future brings uncertainty, love will meet you there just as it did here. You once asked, "Where are you, God?" Now your life itself has become the answer. Every breath, every step, every moment soaked in peace is proof that He never left. He was guiding, molding, preparing you all along. So you breathe deeply now, and not to survive, but to savor. You smile, not to hide the pain, but because the pain no longer owns you. You move forward, not out of fear, but because faith is alive again. And as the final scene unfolds, the door wide open, the light filling every corner, you realize the greatest miracle of all. You didn't just find a way out. You found your way back, to faith, to peace, to love itself. And somewhere deep inside you hear it again, that quiet voice that's been with you through it all whispering, "You see, you were never forgotten. You were never alone. You were always loved. For with God, nothing shall be impossible." Luke 1:37. The same love that opened the door will carry you through it.